Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today, as about to have the video, I am going to be making a beat for Destroy Lonely's new album, No Stylist. And I know, a bit late to the whole Destroy Lonely trend, and oh look, his album, but hey, I've been busy, I've been enjoying my summer, and I'll be back on the grind, so let's just get straight into this. Firstly, we got ourselves a preset from Serum, and Serum's obviously the best thing you want to use for any synth beat, and you know, Destroy Lonely is heavily reliant on those, so first thing we got is a preset called Slow Pad, and it's from the Pads preset. Bang. I came up with this chord progression, and to break it down quite simply, first I laid down some root notes, copy and pasted it upwards, so then we have like 2 root notes, and I just created a bunch of triads, but as you can see, they're all just minor triads. It's just because it's a sad kind of associated chord, does the job really nicely. And then to fill up the sound even more, as you can see, I added a nice little bit of top line here, and that's what this did. And last thing real quick, see here how it goes from one note to the note right beneath, just because they're a semitone apart, creates a bit of tension, it adds a bit of more like emotion to it, so then you guys get this really nice emotional rage beat aesthetic. So with all that being said, this is what the melody sounds like. You have it. Sounds really emotional, sounds super ragey and Destroy Lonely-esque, so I think it sounds dope. First of all, we got ourselves a parametric EQ, cutting off a few of the highs and a few of the lows, and then just makes it sound nice and cleaner. Then, yeah, I added some vinyl, one from RC20, just because if you hear the melody when it plays, it sounds a bit vintage. It sounds like the sound isn't properly there, the pitch is just being shifted a bit, and it gives it that like even more emotional sound. I think it just works really well. I highly recommend doing it. My explanation ain't the best, but you can hear the difference. And then of course, last but not least, you gotta get some reverb on there because you want that sound to be just... Next up, we got a preset from Nexus 2, and it's honestly like the preset that loads up with the VST. It's called Saw in it, and it's the default preset, so that's what I used. As for the melody, I just came up with a nice little counter melody to the whole thing, and it follows this nice little bounce as if it was like playing an 808 pattern. If you could see, it's just obviously the notes are very different. And then for a bit of variation, I added this nice little like drop at the end, and then also added this little bit for a bit of a variation in the second half of the counter melody, so it doesn't stay really boring to the listener. And with all that being said, this is what the counter melody sounds like. And as you guys can see as well, like for example, between these 3 notes, it essentially just forms a diminished minor chord, and because it's a diminished minor, it has that like association of like sad, you know, sad chords, all that jazz. So even when you make a counter melody, you kind of think in that sense of what kind of chord is associated with it, maybe what makes it sound sad, emotional, ragey, you know, because of the theme of the video. And then as for effects, honestly, I just whacked a very basic EQ and then some reverb, of course. Next up, we got ourselves another preset, of course, and it's from, oh, believe it or not, Serum. And it's a preset called Lead Clang from, obviously, you know, lead bang. And essentially all I did was I came up with this pattern, to be honest, of initially from E to F to G to B, but then I was like, you know what, let me just follow the root notes of the actual chord progression, which is essentially why you see it go from an A to a B all the way down to an E, and the top line just stays the same. But it's like a nice little arpeggio essentially, and that's all it really does, but it fills in the sound quite nicely, and this is what it sounds like. As for EQing, I whacked on again another very basic EQ, inductive frequency I wasn't a fan of. And then some more reverb, because honestly, like with good sound selection, sometimes it's not really needed to add a bunch of effects. Like it's really as simple as that. So if you think my effect chain is very basic, then you're very basic, because get to know good sound selection. And then last but not least, I just stereo separated the sound a bit just so it doesn't stick out in your face too much. It's like a nice little arpeggiating lead. Doesn't take up too much room, stays far back in the mix, does the job great. And next up, I got this like saw bass from a band called Miss Preset, and it was like saw bass 4. And all I really did was follow the root notes, and as you can see, the notes kind of glide into each other, which is something I thought sounded much better. So this is what the melody sounds like, because it's essentially just the root notes, nothing more, nothing less. And there you have it. It's a nice synthy bass. It does the job really nicely and it helps just carry that emotion even further. And like it's a nice soul bass, it has a bit of like gritty aesthetic to it as well, and it's the creme de la creme. It just adds it all on top and it's just chilling. And then all I really did to make this sound super nice and thick was add the drum factor from Decapitator and then just messed about with the drive knob a bit. And that's all I really did for my bass effect. And then last but not least, we got one more preset from Serum, and it's called Lead Burmax, and it's from the Lead Bank. What a surprise again. And then again, I came up with another counter melody, and as you guys can see, I made use of these semi-notes really well. And the reason again is because they create nice tension, a bit of darkness, a bit of emotional side to it. And then I just switched it up a bit every 2 bar by just changing this note from a G to an E really. And that's all I can really say I did, because that's all I really did. And without further ado, this is what the final part of the melody sounds like. As for effects, would you believe me if I told you we got another EQ? What? Oh my god, what a surprise, because I EQ everything. And then we got a very heavy reverb. As you guys can see, the decay is quite high, the mix is quite high as well, and that's because I wanted this lead to not really be in your face. Again, it's kind of nice and soft back in the mix. And then I stereo separated this to the max, so it really, again, it was super far laid back in the mix. And now without further ado, obviously to play the whole melody for you guys, and just so you're aware, once again, I don't ever play like all the different parts of the melody together really, so you'll see how I've kind of like sectioned and spaced it out throughout the beat, using different sections to come in and out. Keeps again the listener quite interested, keeps the artist on his toes, and it doesn't also just fill up the mix too much, because if you play it all together, you have to remember the artist's voice is like an instrument, so you want to kind of leave room for that. So that's one of the biggest tips I can really give. So without further ado, this is what the whole melody sounds like. And there you have it, that's the whole melody. And now onto the drums. And of course, you can't go wrong with an essential clap pattern. So I'm gonna take you guys through it very simple. After every beat, place a clap halfway through in the middle, and then we just copy and paste it to the full 8 bar. And there you have it, a clap pattern. And this is what it sounds like. And now next up we got ourselves a hi-hat pattern, and as you guys can see, I literally just repeat it every 2 bar. Kept it very simple. The melody only took up quite a lot of room in my opinion, so didn't want to make the drums too crazy. And to take you guys through it, honestly, it was quite simple. At the end of the 2 bar, just drop this a few notes down, you know, keeping it interesting, and then just added the very basic roll here. And then that's all I actually did. It was just as simple as that, and then just copy and pasted it over for the last 3 lots of 2 bars. So there you have it, and this is what the hi-hat pattern sounds like. There you go. And now next up we got ourselves, of course, the kick pattern. And you know what? You can't forget. Click Control A to have everything highlighted, and then use your scroller wheel, of course, you know, to max the velocity out on your kicks so the drums stay punching. Now, as you guys can see, the pattern is essentially the same the whole way through. However, I just added a bit of variation to the very last part of it. Without further ado, this is what the kick sounds like. And of course, last but not least, we got ourselves the 808s, the masterful 808s. And all I essentially did was use the same kick pattern, but follow the root notes, and there you have it. It's as simple as that, mate. And of course, you guys may be wondering, what the hell is this little 808 note doing? Essentially, it's to completely cut the 808 off from when the bass section plays, because if that note wasn't there, the 808 kind of bleeds into the bass whenever that kind of transition occurs throughout the beat. So all you have to do is really just place a note to the end of the 808 pattern and then drag the velocity down to 0, and it completely just cuts it off and does the job perfectly. And of course, you want to click Control A for this, and you just scroll the wheel to max your velocities out, apart from this little note, of course. So without further ado, this is what my 808 pattern sounds like. Let's get into this. And there you have it. And obviously I use this like 808 from like Pierre's song, what's it called? Hack My Instagram Part 2. Like that really nice distorted 808 kind of feel, because it just adds to the whole emotional rage kind of thing, that no stylist sound, that Destroy Lonely sound, and it just does it nicely. And with all that being said, that's been honestly like all the drums that you need to have, because the melody already does so much. You just keep the drums nice and catchy and basic, punching, you know, doing the job exquisitely well, and you will have zero problems throughout your route. And this is what the drums sound like. And there you have it, folks. That's the drum pattern, and it sounds super hard in my opinion as well, even though it's quite basic. I know. I just love everything about this beat, from the drum source to the melody source. You got all of that now in lock, so there's no excuses for you not to be able to make an emotionally rage beat. And of course, with all that being said, you made it to the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's good to be back. So obviously, you know, I'd appreciate that like, comment, and subscribe. I'm always checking the comments out. Without further ado, I leave you to it. Peace.